I'm Imran, and this is Silicon to Software. Today we're talking about something most engineers don't think about, but probably should. The bottom of the ocean and the 20 ships that keep the internet running. Here's the number that stopped me when I was researching this. 20. That's roughly how many ships on the entire planet are actually built to repair the cables carrying over 95% of the world's international internet traffic. 20 ships for 1.5 million kilometers of cable. I've spent 2 decades in hardware supply chains, and I've seen some tight single-source situations. This one still caught me off guard. Let's start with Tonga, January 2022. The volcano erupts, tsunami waves hit coastlines across the Pacific, and then separately, a whole nation goes dark. Not from the disaster itself, from a cut cable. The repair crew was expecting to splice a clean break. What they found was 80 kilometers of cable shredded into pieces. It took 38 days to get the internet back. Most people hear that and file it under remote island, freak event, not really relevant. I'd push back on that a little. Here's why. Ask any non-engineer how the internet actually works, and you'll hear Wi-Fi, satellites, maybe data centers if they're paying attention. Almost nobody says cables on the ocean floor, but that's the real answer. Around 570 active systems are moving over 95% of cross-border internet traffic, and an estimated $10 trillion a day in financial transactions run through them. 10 trillion through infrastructure most people couldn't identify if you showed them a photo. And physically, this is the part that gets me every time. In deep water, that cable is about the diameter of a garden hose. The actual glass fiber inside is thinner than a human hair. But the cable itself isn't really the fragile piece, it's the repeaters. Every 60 to 100 kilometers, there's a pressurized steel housing sitting on the seafloor packed with electronics at depths up to 8,000 meters. Rated for 25 years, zero maintenance, and you cannot get to it once it's down there. When one of those fails, the replacement parts come from a supplier list short enough that it would get flagged in any serious hardware risk audit. Now, who actually owns this infrastructure? Not who you'd guess. It used to be telecom carriers running the show. Today it's the hyperscalers, Google, Meta, Amazon, Microsoft. They hold ownership stakes in 59 cable systems now, nearly triple what they had back in 2017. So the same companies whose services run through these pipes are increasingly the ones who own the pipes. How do these cables actually break in practice? Mostly it's unglamorous stuff, fishing gear and dragged anchors, 150 to 200 faults a year. Then there's the messier category. Baltic Sea cables getting cut within hours of each other. A sanctioned tanker dragging its anchor 62 miles across the seabed. Some of these get charged as deliberate sabotage. But European officials have said most of the Baltic incidents were probably just accidents tied to a surge in shadow fleet ship traffic. Honestly, it's genuinely hard to separate malice from bad seamanship in a lot of these cases. Near Taiwan, cables have been cut 30 times since 2017, and repair permits through contested waters that used to take days are now taking months. So what does this actually mean for you practically? Probably not a total blackout. Major economies carry enough redundancy for that. What's realistic is slow degradation, speeds that crawl, payments that lag, cloud services that flicker in and out. That's harder to notice, harder to trace back to a root cause, and over time, more damaging than one dramatic outage would be. And the fix is moving slowly. Congress is looking at funding 2 new repair ships. Telegeography's own numbers say closing the actual gap takes 15. Google and Meta are rerouting new cables around the highest risk choke points, which helps, but private investment optimizes for their own uptime, not for collective infrastructure resilience. Different problem. Bottom line, this is a garden hose carrying $10 trillion a day, maintained by 20 ships, held together by electronics nobody can physically touch for a quarter century. It deserves more attention than it's getting from people building on top of it. For the full write-up, the sourcing, and the deeper dive into the geopolitics and the cyber side of this, head over to silicontosoftware.com. Talk soon.